Good afternoon. My name is Vincent Dolce. I'm a local realtor here in the Denver area, and we're privileged to have Gabe Bodner from Fairway Mortgage with us. Welcome, Gabe.
Thank you, Vincent. I appreciate it, and looking forward to our conversation today. And as you said, I'm with Fairway Independent Mortgage, and I run the reverse mortgage team within the Ruth team at Fairway here in the Denver metro area.
Beautiful. So you're an expert in reverse mortgages. That's basically what you do.
Well, I don't know that I would specifically call myself an expert, but I definitely would say I'm a specialist. I specialize in reverse mortgages.
That's good enough. That's good enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Gabe, every time I mention reverse mortgages to anybody over 65, 62 years old, I get such feedback. They don't want to hear it. I'm finding that there's such misinformation today about what I think is probably one of the best products for anyone who's a senior citizen. Would you agree?
Yes, unfortunately, I do agree. And I say, unfortunately, I do agree that there's a lot of misconceptions out there. I agree with you that it's a great program, very misunderstood. But you're right. There's a lot of misconceptions. And I think, Vincent, to your point, it's a lack of education. Quite candidly, people have created a story in their head in many cases about what this program is and how it works. But what I find is that when I sit down with clients in many cases, and I ask them, well, what do you think a reverse mortgage is? Or why don't you want a reverse mortgage?
Right. That's a better question. Yeah.
They answer the question with something that is completely a fallacy, or it would never happen. So we have to overcome a false objection, quite candidly, in a lot of cases. But once we peel the layers back and find out why people might have some friction associated with the term reverse mortgage, in a lot of cases, as you said very well, it's based on misinformation.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of this talk. I want people to leave this discussion knowing exactly what it is and what it isn't, so that, when their friends say, oh, that's terrible, or I have realtors in my brokerage that don't know the new rules, I guess, of the reverse mortgage. And it's a shame. I think people are losing out by not participating.
I think you're right, and I appreciate you taking the time to share this information with your network and your community, because I agree with you 100%. I think that this is an underutilized program, and it's an extremely powerful tool. And quite candidly, I view it as a tool, and I think that more than anything, people have to understand the way we do retirement today needs to be looked at differently than the way retirement was done in the 80s and 90s and prior to that. The economy is different today than the way the economy was, prior to 1990, 1994. And therefore, again, this program, as we'll talk about here shortly, needs to be considered by almost anybody, quite candidly, who's 62 years of age or older as part of their overall retirement strategy.
Okay, great. Well, growing up, I always heard, you have to pay off your mortgage. You're going to burn the mortgage when it's paid off. Remember?
That's right. There were mortgage burning parties back then, right? People would celebrate having made their last payment and paid the mortgage off. But that's right.
Yeah, I mean, and then okay, so somebody's there, 62 and over, and they paid off their mortgage. Now what? How does that help them through the rest of their life?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm going to illustrate for you, because I think it's really fascinating. But as I take out my wallet and I take some cash out of my wallet here to illustrate, this is really what is fascinating to me. But as people make a mortgage payment, They literally, just like I did, they take money out of their wallet every single month, and they take cash out of their pocket or their bank account, and they give it to their lender every single month as part of their mortgage payment, right? And in exchange, they get this stuff that we call equity, right? And it might look like money, right? There's some similarities there, but the reality is equity is useless. And I might offend some people by saying it that directly, but quite candidly, equity is useless because you can't do anything with it, right? If I were to give you this $100 bill that looks like money, you can't go to the grocery store, right? You can't buy groceries. You can't travel. You can't give gifts to your kids or your grandkids, right? You can't do anything with this. But I'll tell you what, if I gave you this, there's a lot more you can do with it.
Yes,
right?
Sir. Yes, sir.
And so the point of that illustration is that every month someone's making a mortgage payment, they're taking cash out of their pocket and they're putting it into their house. In exchange, they have more equity.
Right.
And that's a wonderful strategy for wealth building that we absolutely believe in, and we encourage clients to build wealth in real estate. However, once you reach a certain point in life, right? And once you reach this stage in life that we call retirement, and your income is usually reduced in retirement,
Of course.
the question becomes, why do you want to take more cash out of your pocket just to create more equity, which is useless? Because the strategy in retirement is actually no longer to accrue and accumulate assets. Quite candidly, the strategy in retirement is actually to spend down your assets.
Right. Enjoy
But
yourself.
the goal is to spend down your assets safely,
Right.
so that you don't run out of money before you die, right? And that's really the concern that many people have in retirement is, how do I make my money last longer so I don't run out of money before I die? And at the same time, I want to live a decent life in retirement. So how do you balance, spending money and enjoying yourself, but not spending too much so you have this risk of running out before you die?
Right.
With all that being said, if you've got a lot of this home equity stuff that is, like I said, useless, the reverse mortgage simply reverses the process that you went through all those years that you made a mortgage payment. All the years you took cash out of your pocket and you turned it into equity, we're reversing the process now.
Okay.
The reverse mortgage says, now we're going to give you back some of the equity in your home and convert it back to cash.
Wow. Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course, because everybody needs more money, whether they want to bump up their lifestyle, they want to help their children. There's so many options now that they've paid down their mortgage and they have all this equity, especially here in Colorado. I mean, people have tons of equity, and it's like a handcuff almost, unless you use it. I mean,
that's right. And I think there's a couple things I'll add to that, Vincent, and that is, number one, you mentioned earlier that people celebrated when they paid off their mortgage.
Yep.
Because the goal back then was to no longer have a mortgage.
Yes.
Because what really people were trying to achieve were two things. Number one, not actually have a mortgage payment.
Right.
And number two, the security of knowing that nobody can ever take their home away from them. And therefore, once that loan was paid off and the mortgage was destroyed, nobody could ever take that home away. But
Right.
you know what's fascinating, with the reverse mortgage, we still accomplish the same two things.
Okay.
No mortgage payment required,
Wow.
and you still own your home, and nobody can ever take that away from you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the feedback I get all the time. Oh, you don't own your own home, and I'm not going to sign it. And they they've heard from the wrong people. They're not going to people who know things like you, who know the facts.
Unfortunately, yeah. And so, I want to clarify again, with a reverse mortgage, you still own your house.
Okay.
Okay. You still have title to your house. If you wanted to, you can still sell your house at any time, and you can still pass your home on to your heirs. And as long as the home is still appreciating, you're still gaining equity.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
You're never going to be kicked out of your house, and you're never going to lose your house as long as you continue to pay your property taxes.
Okay.
And your homeowner's insurance, which is the same requirement as any other loan for that matter. And you've always got to pay your property taxes anyway. The only additional requirement with the reverse mortgage is that you have to live there, because the reverse mortgage is considered a mortgage on a primary residence.
Okay.
So that is the only additional requirement, is that you have to live there. As long as you live there, you never have to worry about making a mortgage payment or paying the loan back. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah, because that's one of the feedbacks I get. So how can you take your home that's paid off or almost paid off and leverage it with a reverse mortgage where you don't have any payments and you're still building equity in your home? Is that possible?
It is possible. It is possible. So let's just go through an example. Okay. And let's just say you have a $600,000 home as an example. And for conversation purposes, let's just say you owe $100,000 still on your home, but you have $500,000 of equity. Because to be clear, a reverse mortgage doesn't mean you have to have your home paid off. Okay. So a lot of people think that you need to own your home free and clear to do a reverse mortgage. And that again is not true either. So in this illustration, you got a $600,000 home and you owe $100,000. So you have $500,000 of equity. The typical homeowner can borrow about 50% of the value of their home with a reverse mortgage. Now that percent varies between 45% and 75%. It's based on a couple different factors to include the age of the homeowner, or the ages of the homeowners. But let's just say 50% for easy math. So if you have a $600,000 home, that homeowner can effectively borrow on average about $300,000 with a reverse mortgage.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. Now, that $300,000 can be given to or distributed to the homeowner in several different ways. Okay. It can be what we call a lump sum distribution. It can be through a monthly payment plan, or it can be through a line of credit. Now, in this illustration, if the client owes $100,000 on a mortgage, that they're still making mortgage payments every single month, right? Remember, they're taking cash out of their pocket to make payments. Right. The first thing we want to do is eliminate that $100,000 mortgage balance and eliminate the need to make mortgage payments on that loan again. So if they can borrow $300,000, immediately we're going to take $100,000 of that and pay off the mortgage. Which leaves them with $200,000 remaining that they can use however they need to. Again, they can take part of it as a lump sum distribution. They can take it as a monthly payment plan or a line of credit.
Question. When they pull this money out of the home, do they pay taxes on that money? Is it income or how does it work?
Great question. The proceeds of the reverse mortgage, i.e. that $300,000 they have access to, is not considered income. And therefore they do not need to pay income taxes.
Wow.
The use of home equity as part of a retirement strategy is one of the most efficient uses of wealth as part of a retirement strategy, because of that exact point, is that it's tax-free. There's very few buckets of money that we have in retirement that are tax-free. Home equity is one.
Right.
Okay. A Roth IRA is another. Okay. And cash value life insurance is the other. Those are the only three buckets of money that we have access to that are effectively tax-free. Now, I'm not a tax advisor and I'm not a financial advisor, but I will tell you that the use of home equity, tax-free funds, in conjunction with the rest of your portfolio, can create such tax efficiency that you can actually preserve your assets under your portfolio and pay less in income taxes if you utilize the strategy efficiently.
So are there any restrictions on the money?
No
restrictions. It's your money?
It's your money. You can do it as you wish, whether it's home improvement, whether it's gifting to family, whether it's vacation, whether it's, utilizing it to cover long-term care expenses for you or a spouse. We have clients even, Vincent, that will utilize some of the home equity with a reverse mortgage to then acquire other real estate and potentially leverage the home equity that they have in their primary residence to acquire another home to help create either vacation lifestyle in a second home or a rental property now to create rental income and now receive income on that money, the rental property rather.
Yeah, so instead of that money just sitting there, now you're putting it to use, you're making money on your money without working.
That's right. Because home equity, you're not getting a return on your investment when it sits there.
Right. And I think that's the biggest hurdle to get over. That people don't understand that they can take the money out of their home, make money with it, and still be safe, to put that money in stocks or bonds or put it in another home, or just can you get monthly payments? Like if you just needed an extra $500 or $1,000 a month to boost up your lifestyle, you could do that also?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we can set up monthly payment plan for a period of time, what we call a term payment, or for life, depending on the client's needs. So I have a client right now, as a matter of fact, who's 63 years old, and she wants to retire, but does not want to collect Social Security yet. She wants to delay collecting Social Security so that she can get an increase by delaying Social Security, but she can't really afford to retire without collecting Social Security. But what we're doing is we're creating the reverse mortgage as a strategy to produce in cash flow for her on a monthly basis until she then decides to collect Social Security, so she can improve cash flow and retire and delay Social Security all at the same time.
Okay, so now you have a $600,000 house, you pulled out $3, you paid off the $100,000 note, and now you have 200 grand. What happens? Do you get charged any money on that money that you're borrowing money essentially?
Sure. So you're charged interest and mortgage insurance on whatever you borrow. So if you have access to $300,000, but you only borrow $100 to pay off that mortgage, as an example, you're only charged interest on the $100,000. You're not charging any interest on the $200 until you start taking it out. Okay. That's number one. Number two, the interest is charged on whatever you borrow, but it's what we call deferred. So the interest gets added to the loan balance and paid back at a future date when either you decide to sell the house or when the last borrower permanently leaves the home. The loan does need to get paid back at that point in time. So the interest is accumulating based on what you've borrowed and is being deferred. But what's also interesting here in Colorado is that these numbers are fascinating. And let me give you an example. If we just take a 4% interest rate on a $300,000 loan balance, that's about $12,000 of deferred interest a year. If you take a $600,000 home value, and if we use the National Association of Realtors average appreciation nationally, it's about 4% appreciation a year. That's not Colorado. We've seen a lot more appreciation than that. But if we just use 4% appreciation on average of a $600,000 home, that's $24,000 of appreciation. With $12,000 of deferred interest on the loan, that homeowner is actually still making $12,000 a year above and beyond the deferred interest, in addition to the cash flow savings that they had by not making a mortgage payment anymore.
Wow. So they owed $100, they borrowed $300, they borrowed $100 to pay it back. Now they have $200,000 cash to do whatever they want. They're getting charged 4% on the whole note, basically.
That's just an example illustration, but Yeah, right now
Okay.
interest rates are around 4%.
Around 4. Okay.
Yeah, I mean they range between right now around 3.75 to 4.25, depending on other factors
Right.
and loan structure.
But the reality is that $600,000 house is appreciating by at least 4%, which in Colorado was 20% last year.
Yeah,
so
you and I know we can't guarantee that ever, but that is the reality of where we live and real estate here in Colorado for sure.
Right. So you are making money even though you're being charged on the money that you're taking out.
You're continuing to build equity.
Right.
And you're continuing to maintain and improve cash flow. And if you're taking money out of your portfolio, as an example, that's taxable.
Right.
And you take $100 out of your portfolio that's taxable, and you're left with only $80 or $75,
yes,
right, to make a mortgage payment. It's extremely inefficient. And what I'm talking about is let's stop taking money out of your portfolio to just make mortgage payments. Keep the money in the portfolio so you can preserve the money, allow it to grow, and again, pay less in taxes in that illustration. And all at the same time, if your home is appreciating, then yes, you're continuing to gain in appreciation above and beyond the interest that's being deferred. And the reality is the appreciation in the market, in one way to look at it, is the appreciation in the market is more than covering the cost of the interest.
Right. And I mean, I don't think Colorado's gone below 6% appreciation in a long time. I mean, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future, obviously.
Sure. But we don't know what's going to happen. And to your point, we haven't. But here's the other thing that I will say is that these loans are what we call non-recourse mortgages.
And what does that mean?
This is an important piece. The non-recourse feature means that the homeowner nor the heirs can ever owe more than the value of the home. So if in that example, that $600,000 home, never went up in value. So we're speculating that it's going to continue to appreciate by 4%. But let's say it doesn't.
Okay.
And let's say they borrow $300,000. And let's say that they live in that house for another 20 years.
Yes.
Okay. And let's say that $300,000 continues to defer interest and grow. And let's say they pass away in 20 years from now. Okay. And let's say mathematically they end up owing $700,000 on the house.
Okay.
And the house is only worth $600,000. In that example, they're what we call upside down, right? Yeah. They owe more than the house is worth. Well, first of all, they don't owe that money. If they lived in the house and then passed away, they can't be held liable at that point. Gotcha. But their heirs would inherit the home. That's a $600,000 home with a $700,000 mortgage balance. Wow. But the non-recourse feature protects the heirs such that they can't be held liable for anything above and beyond the value of the home. So the heirs in that example would be able to sell the home for $600,000 if that's fair market value, and the $700,000 mortgage balance gets paid off through the sale of the home and the mortgage insurance, and the heirs have no liability associated with that mortgage balance.
So it's a win-win-win situation. Plus, if you took that $200,000 that you had clear and put it in a stock portfolio, bought another home with it, you're going to be beating inflation or earning money. And I mean, it's something that you could do that you weren't doing with the money, just with the equity just laying there and not helping you at all.
Yeah, effectively, I mean, that's a great way to look at it, is all this equity is sitting in sort of a glass suitcase in your home. Yeah. Imagine having a $600,000 home that you have $500,000 of equity that you can't do anything with. It's like having a glass suitcase in your living room that you look at every day when you come home, and the reverse mortgage is the key to open up that glass suitcase to be able to extract some of the equity. We're of course not going to give you access to all of the equity, but we're giving you access to some of the equity with the ability to use it tax-free. And as you said, diversify quite candidly, which is smart. I mean, because if you're house rich and potentially cash poor, you might have all your eggs in one basket. And so by being able to do this, you can actually diversify yourself and your portfolio so that you can move away from just being fully invested in equity and diversify your assets and your wealth into other areas.
I don't understand why financial planners aren't recommending at least a consult with someone like you to see if they qualified and see all the pros and cons, because they can take more money and invest it for their clients. I mean, I don't understand that. You know.
We don't typically recommend that a client take money out of their house and go put it in the stock market, just to be clear. But, it's an option. If somebody wanted to take the money, again, they can do what they want. We typically recommend leave it in the home, access it when you need to on demand. But to your point, financial advisors are starting to become more in tune with this program and seeing the value for their clients. And quite candidly, not only should they do that, but they need to. In my opinion, they actually need to, because as a fiduciary, it is their responsibility to incorporate all of the client's assets as part of their overall plan. And if you have a $500,000 portfolio and you have a $500,000 of home equity, it would be improper or foolish to not incorporate the home equity as part of the overall plan. And one could argue that actually is not acting as a fiduciary if they don't.
Right. Yeah, because they're not acting in the best interest of their clients, my opinion, without at least exposing them. They don't have to sign up for a reverse mortgage, but at least they should know about it, especially if the money that they're earning on their portfolio is not enough, which is going to happen to a lot of people, I assume, in the future.
I think you're right. And I think that's a good way to put it. I don't suggest that every financial planner tell their client they need to do this. I think it's wise that financial planners at least suggest that they evaluate this and see if it makes sense. Because to your point, the cost of living continues to go up. As we've seen inflation over 7.5% now. Social Security income does not support inflation these days. I think people were cheering about a 6% increase in Social Security this year, but the reality is it's just not enough. And with everything costing more money, even with a $500,000 portfolio, a 65, 66, 67-year-old couple, I hate to say it, it's not enough money to withstand a 30-year retirement. Because here's the thing, Vincent, people in the 80s and 70s and 60s didn't plan for a 30-year retirement.
Exactly.
Nowadays, people have to plan for a 30-year retirement, and a $500,000 in a portfolio is simply not enough. So if we can help them to ensure that portfolio lasts longer, because they're taking less out and paying less in taxes, it truly is a win-win-win.
Yeah, that's my point. My dad just passed away at 95. I mean, he sure didn't expect to live that long. He didn't. If you talk to him, he would tell you. One of the questions I had was this. So we're 65. You have a 65-year-old couple. They have a $600,000 house. They take out as much as they can, 50% of the equity. Now, 10 years down the road, being in Colorado, or most every place, but especially here in Colorado, their house is going to appreciate and probably be worth $800,000 in 10 years. Can they refinance again and pull more money out? Is that legitimate?
It is. It's actually an option, certainly, and we're doing those right now for clients. that had gotten a reverse mortgage, there are some very stringent rules and protections. Because you have to keep in mind that we're dealing with clients typically, again, 55 years of age and older, and in most cases, 62 years of age and older. So there's a history in our country of elder abuse, unfortunately. And because of that, there's very strict rules on what we can do with reverse mortgage refinances. But to answer your question, absolutely. Somebody did a reverse mortgage and they've seen significant appreciation in their home, and a year or 2 or 3 goes by, we should 100% look at that situation and evaluate, does it make sense for them? And does the benefit outweigh the cost enough to be able to do this? We never want to put a client into a situation where the cost does not, the benefit does not outweigh the cost, at least by 5 times the cost.
Right. But it is an option. I mean, we're all living longer, and somebody 65 is probably for sure going to make it to 75, 85, and in Colorado, unless something really, really changes, the house is going to appreciate,
That's what we plan on, and we expect and we have to plan on people living into their 90s, and every amortization schedule and projection that we run for clients takes them out till their 100th birthday, effectively. So that way we do show them how this looks, both positive and negative. What are the pros and what are the cons of doing this all the way up until you turn 100 years old.
That's fantastic. So what do people need to do to find out all this information? I wish every one of my clients over 62 would make an appointment with you just to find out their options. And, after all, Tom Selleck is recommending the reverse mortgage. So it's got to be good, right?
Yeah, it's fun to joke about that company and Tom Selleck as a spokesperson. And with all due respect to him and their company, they pay a lot of money for TV advertising, and they do a good job. The reality is, I think what makes us different and unique are a couple things. Number one, we're obviously local, and we try to do our best to meet with each client in person at some point if possible. And being local, we think that's really important to do. And quite candidly, some of these 800 numbers and call centers just don't have the ability to do that. But that's part of our business model, is as we are local, we understand the local market, we understand how the local market works with local appraisers and so forth. The other thing is, as you said earlier, I do specialize in these loans, right? And, I can't call myself an expert. The industry won't allow me to call myself an expert. But as I specialize in these loans, the point of that is I understand everybody's situation is different. Yes. People's needs are different. Yes. And as we age, clients' needs are different, and they have different challenges that we have to address. Yes. And we go through extensive training here at Fairway within the reverse mortgage division to ensure that we're equipped with the right tools to be able to help our clients. And again, not every situation is the same. So we look at every situation differently to put together a proposal for our clients. Again, with that being said, I think you have a great point. Every client that's 62 years of age and older should give us a call and schedule an appointment, because it doesn't cost them anything to do a consultation. Exactly. All we have to do is a quick market analysis of their home. We can take a look at their mortgage balance and their statement, and we can evaluate what options are available to them and if it makes sense. And if it doesn't, we'll be the first ones to tell you it doesn't make sense. Right.
And as a realtor, I recommend this all the time. Do you recommend them bringing their children with them to the consult? Is that a good idea, bad idea, so that everybody understands what's going on?
I think it's a great idea. Not every situation do I recommend it.
Right.
But it depends on somebody's situation. Like I said earlier, there are plenty of people I've talked to recently, baby boomers, and certainly have said to me, Gabe, my kids make more money than I've ever made, and my kids are going to be fine. I'm not worried about them, right?
Exactly.
We've got, some people are very concerned about their kids and others are not. But I let the client choose ultimately. If they want to bring their kids, bring them. I'd love to help them understand how this works and the benefit, because here's the unfortunate reality is if someone doesn't do a reverse mortgage and they run out of money, what are their options now?
None.
Well, they're either going to have to sell the house, which means now they need a new place to live, right? And that most likely is going to be the basement of their children. And the children are going to end up taking care of mom or dad in the basement. And so nobody wants that. I haven't talked to anybody who really wants that outcome. So if we can help the parents to be self-sufficient financially and to age in place on their own terms, it will benefit the next generation as well, and in more ways than one. And I think having those open conversations and dialogue with the children is extremely powerful.
Well, every person over 65 wants to live out their life on their own, independent, and without being taken care of by anybody, especially financially. It would be like the worst thing for most people to have their kids support them. So I love that you came on. I love that we're educating people, and you need to get your questions answered. I mean, people have all kinds of questions. Some of them are relevant and some of them really don't apply to this mortgage, but get them answered is what I'm saying, is have a mind open enough to find out.
Yeah, I think you're right. And again, I appreciate you taking the time to sit with me today and ask me these questions and share the information with your clients, certainly.
Yeah, so let's just go over. So basically, you never lose control of your home. The home is always in your name.
That's correct. You maintain title to your house. That does not change.
That's a big deal. I mean, that I get, that feedback I get all the time. I'm not going to own my home. I'm going to have to make payments to the bank, which again is not correct.
That's correct. That's an interesting question that I haven't addressed yet, and that is, you can always make payments. We talked about the fact that these loans have deferred interest, right? And over time, the interest grows and accumulates. However, it doesn't have to. I have some clients who might defer interest for a period of time and then pay it back at some point in time, or vice versa. Maybe they want to make payments now while they're still working, and then when they go to retire, they choose to stop making payments. So the reality is, I call this a payment optional mortgage. You see, on a traditional mortgage, let's say a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, you're obligated to make mortgage payments every single month. If you get sick, if you lose your job, right, or you lose a spouse, right, you still are obligated to make a mortgage payment.
Correct.
With a reverse mortgage, you have the choice. You can make payments or you don't have to.
That is I thought I knew everything about the reverse mortgage, but that is the best point that you've made, besides all the other great points. But that's really super, because if you're still working and you're still producing and you want to pay off the interest for the year, you can do it. And if something happens down the road where you can't work anymore, or you lose a spouse or something else, or you become incapacitated, you have an option. I love that. Right. That is a cool point. Listen, so let's put we're going to put your information on the broadcast. And of course, I will be recommending all my clients over 62 to become educated. I really, really appreciate your time and your effort. This, to me, this is so important, and nobody's really doing it. Nobody's really addressing this. You know, there's so much hearsay. You know, oh, my neighbor said it's this, or my friend said this, or my accountant said this. You know, people that are unqualified are giving these people advice, and unfortunately, the public is open to this advice as opposed to getting first-hand advice.
That's right. And I appreciate that. And again, I think the financial literacy in our country around retirement is not where it needs to be, unfortunately. And the financial advisory industry as well, not a knock on the industry, but if people don't have money, financial advisor really can't help them in many cases.
Right.
There are fee-based financial planners out there, but most folks, you know, as far as asset managers, if you don't have assets, you don't have a manager. And therefore, who's managing your money? And the reality is, in Colorado, if you have $500,000 or $600,000 of equity, you need an equity manager. That's what we do.
That's what you are. Yes.
That's what we do.
I love that.
Okay.
Yeah, you are an equity manager. That is your position, really. And nobody's going to give the advice that you give, and the guidance that you guys give to help people transition to their next level in life. Again,
Absolutely.
I want to thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you in the near future. We'll do this again to give an update.
Sounds great, Vincent. Thank you.
Right,
And
thank
great
you.
chatting with you. And thanks for your time today as well.
Bye now.